Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We are Western Title, super excited for our class today. Prineville Improvements, Concepts, and Ideas is coming right at you. In addition to our speaker, Josh Smith, who's with us today, we're delighted to be joined by our escrow officer out in our Prineville branch. That is Sarah Rose Thurston. Good morning, Sarah. How are you? As well as our sales team. So myself, Carlene, Amy, and Hannah are all joining us. And so we're super excited to be with you this morning. Carlene, you recently had an opportunity to hear our speaker, Josh, give a presentation, right? Out in Prineville?
Yes, I sure did. So Josh is the planning director for the city of Prineville, and I was lucky enough to sit in on one of his classes, and he was just so full of information and just had an answer for everything. And I just thought, okay, we have to open this up and share it to everyone. So we are very excited to have him here with us today. He has put together an amazing presentation. We really wanted to focus on just some of the great attractions of Prineville as well. I mean, there's so many things that I think sometimes we kind of forget about, and there's so much planning that they're going to be adding to it all. So it'll be great highlights to just share with your clients as well, people new to the area, and just for some of us that sometimes aren't aware. So Josh, thank you so much for being here. If you want to share a little bit about yourself, and we can go ahead and get going.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Carlene. Yeah, like as I said, my name is Joshua Smith. I'm planning director here. I looked through the names in the chat, so I recognize a lot of those names. The presentation is kind of built on the idea that you do know something about Prineville, but I'll try to explain where things are a little bit better. You know, I've been the planning director here for about 3-4 years, but I've worked for the city of Prineville in planning capacity for about 16 years. So been here a long time, know a lot about the community. And so this presentation, as Carlene said, is more about what are the things Prineville can offer. You know, it's when you're going out and you're showing a house or something, and someone has a question like, well, where's the nearest park, or what's going to happen behind me? There's this big field behind me. What's going to happen there? Or what kind of traffic impacts do we have? You know, is that going to be a road here? Is that going to be a park? Is that going to be a subdivision? And so most of the things we'll go through today is all public. I'm not going to share, private things. You can certainly call and ask about those anytime. There's just too much to actually put into a whole presentation, but I'll go over some major infrastructure projects that you might not be aware of that definitely impact when people pick up property or moving somewhere. I'll go over a lot of the parks plans. I mean, that's probably the key. One of the largest things are amenities that people are asking for. Parks and trails are that's the number one thing that people are moving into areas for, right? They want that recreational opportunity. They want it close to home. And then some of our public buildings, some of that we're looking at revamping and have some ideas and concepts for. So I'll just, on the presentation, this is kind of the main group of things. So infrastructure, got a couple projects there. Go over the parks. Parks will entail 2 city areas. One of them's a nonprofit area that's connected to it. The others are through Parks and Rec, Kirk County Parks and Rec, which is actually a separate taxing district. They have some great ideas and great momentum on their side. And then some of the public buildings there at the end, one of which just passed in the ballot on the 2nd. So that will, some of you may not have seen the concepts for the new courthouse, but I'll show you some of those. Museum expansion and what possibility might be for the old police department. And then at the end, we'll do questions. I think we'll just use the chat. There's a lot of people in here, so I don't know if the hand raising will work very well. So we'll try to use the chat, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. And you don't have to, you can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be related to these specific projects. The first one I want to share goes to the infrastructure. So this is, the city, one of their main responsibilities is providing the infrastructure, sewer, water, and transportation, and then the ability for all the other utility companies to actually serve the area. So one of our responsibilities, of course, is water. That's came to the forefront this year, mostly on the irrigation side, not so much on the municipality side. But what we've just fired up is our aquifer storage and recovery system. Typically, the city is run off of just a series of 11 different wells, pumps into storage tanks that you can see up on the hill. In various places, up on Hospital Hill, up by the airport, east of town in the Barney tank. And that's just a basic water system for residential commercial customers. But we don't have typical customers here with the data centers. They require a lot of water at very short periods of time. And so they don't use a lot of water, but when they do, it's a huge spike, and we need to be able to deliver that water and have the capacity available. So what we've created was this aquifer storage and recovery system. You can see the building in the background being built. This is a treatment facility down south of the fairgrounds. There's it. That's what it looks like today. It's a drone shot of a treatment facility, and right on the other side of the street is a series of 20 wells, 100 feet deep, and they supply. We push the water through here. We need the treatment facility to take the manganese and the sulfur out, and then this allows us the capacity to push water up the hill and bring it back down. We can now pump water up onto the grade. We can now let it into the town. It's more than just this system. We have pipes going up the grade. But the key point of the aquifer storage and recovery was to provide water storage when we don't need the water, and then pull it out, recover it when we do need it. And so it's a very unique system. We've got a lot of different awards for it. It's not unusual. It has been done in other places, but it takes a very specific geology in order to make this happen, and we happen to have that here in Prineville. So in the wintertime, we pump water up onto the grade and pump it into the airport wells. And what it does is our aquifer is confined, and so it actually balloons up. It actually creates a bubble underneath that, and it allows us to store an enormous amount of water, where our normal water tank is 1 million gallons. That's a normal tank you see any town USA. This has the potential to store 400 million gallons. Now, we may not ever reach that, but that is the theoretical capacity. And in the summer, we can pull that out when the aquifer recharge is really low and the river's down, the reservoirs are down. We're using groundwater, not surface water, but it's still, that recharge isn't there. So we do slowly pull that water down. And you see, I don't know if you can see that on the side there, this is kind of a little chart, but what important part is you see all those lines on the bottom. Those are our yearly recharge. You can see how it gradually recharges over the winter. And then we pump it out in the summer, and then it gradually recharges again, over and over again. What the aquifer storage and recovery does is allows it to boost. So that big green line is us pumping water into the ground. And then when we stop pumping, what we didn't want to see is that water drop all the way down to those normal lines. If that happened, that means the water's leaking out somewhere, and it didn't work. But we didn't. We actually saw it stop, and it held steady at a higher level. So this was 2 years ago. We test pumped this. This stored 34 million gallons. And what was even more unique about the situation is that we expected it to store the water. We did not expect it to continue to rise. So what we actually saw was the storage, and then the natural recharge was actually pushing it up higher. So it's been an outstanding system. It's worked more than we had hoped. And then what this table does is kind of illustrate what we're doing. We're taking those flows that you see here in the winter from this is Crooked River flows. These are our gauges we have. There's a gauge at the 3rd Street Bridge, and there's a gauge down by Smith Rocks. That's what the blue lines are. And you can see we have a huge amount of flow in the wintertime, and then in the summertime we have very little. So we're capturing this, we pump into the ground, and then we pull it back out. And so it takes off that peak. And that's the primary reason for doing that, is that's when, especially this last year when we had the 115-degree day, the data centers spiked hard. But then they don't use water the rest of the time. It's just that we need that capacity to be able to serve them for that 1 to 2 days when it gets really hot, and then it works. And so this allows us to take off that major peak, and allows our water system to serve other customers as well. So this system doesn't just serve them, it serves the entire community. It's a really interesting system. We're going to make it more robust. We're actually starting to pump into it again right now in November to build up that aquifer. Next project is our 3rd Street project. So, if you notice in Redmond Bend, pretty much every town in Central Oregon has done a Main Street project where they've beautified their community through that. Prineville has a very long highway through town. It's never really been upgraded, but ODOT does have a need to connect the signals, signal timing. So they had a project. They have to do a lot of ADA ramps and things. So these projects kind of coalesced. We got money from the legislature to do some pedestrian enhancements. And what we're trying to do is put together a project primarily from Harwood to Elm. It's actually going to go all the way out to Combs Flat for the signal timing. Those yellow circles on either side. The beautification would be concentrated more in the central part of the community. The funding for this is becoming difficult because it's such a large project, but we're still working through it with ODOT. We actually do have a design. Part of that design, and this is kind of the streetscape design, where you add in all new sidewalks, curbs at the intersections. You do more of a bulb out, kind of a enhanced pedestrian crossings. You get some street trees, some pedestrian lighting instead of the large cobra heads and overhead lighting. We would bring that down. We already have an example of that lighting on our 4th Street, where the parking lot is. Those lantern style pedestrian lights. That's what we're going to use. So they work really well. I think they shed a lot of light, and it's attractive. So this is kind of the concept, gives you an idea. This is by no means the end all be all, but this is just kind of a concept drawing of it. A lot of people have concerns about bulb outs, especially at intersections for trailers and trucks and things like that. ODOT does as well for their highways. So we always kind of like to show this example. This is what the old curbs look like. And what you can see is that the turning radius actually isn't any different. It's the same point of emphasis. What it does is it just pushes people out so that they stay in their lane and they don't hug that curb. And so whether you hug that curb or not, you're going to roll over that curb. So if you'll notice on 3rd and Main, for those who live in Prineville, you notice we have those candlesticks, those orange cones kind of sitting over here. They do the same thing. They're just pushing people out in the traffic so they don't roll over the curb. But that actual turning movement isn't any different with a bulb out. It's designed to be the same. And then this is just kind of a conceptual drawing of what we hope for. Probably won't have the rain garden planters, but street trees, the lantern style lights, improved pedestrian crossings at the corners, maybe some benches and garbage cans that kind of match everything would be the ultimate goal. This is probably 2-year project, 2 years out. The funding is becoming an issue because the prices of things have gone just through the roof. Concrete, piping. We got a whole drainage system we're trying to fix with this, and we're hoping that when it actually gets to the construction, we actually go to bid, that those prices have come down by then. Third, Combs Flat. So this is probably our #1 project right now in the community. It's a large project. This would connect Combs Flat to Peters Road on the east side of Prineville through the Iron Horse project in what is now the city's Barnesby recreation area. This is a long time coming. It's been in our transportation plan for a long time. It's now coming to fruition primarily because OID, the irrigation district, has a need to pipe their canal due to the Mackay project, which is a whole other issue. But they're going to be in there next year piping that canal. They have the money to pipe it. So they're going to take this open canal out. Actually, the canal will remain on the most part of it. This portion will go. They're going to pipe that. We thought, hey, let's combine the project, save a little money, and we'll get that pipe in the ground, put a trail over it, make it part of our street, and we'll get this connection done. Not funded yet on our side. The OID piping is funded. So we have a design. This is kind of the route. And the ideal concept basically is, because of the Barnesby rec area on one side, everything on the west side in these colored shaded areas would be designated for what the Iron Horse plan was originally for, was for housing. So this would most likely be developed all in here. It's not going to be part of the park. And then the Combs Flat would be the dividing line. This will still remain part of the park. This is all wetland and trail systems. But all the park system over here would then be pushed to the side, and trail connections will be made and all kinds of things. So we have concept plan that I'll show you here in a little bit under the park section. And then the lower east, this would all remain housing and things down in here. But this project is really needed to reduce congestion in the northern part of town, but also to open up this property for development and the park system, and also to get that canal remade. And then the old canal here, what we call the Wolf's Head, would just become, we kind of think it might become a cool, you know, it's a trail system already, it might become a cool pump track for bikes, you know, mountain bikes or something. We won't want to fill that in right now. We just leave it alone and make it an amenity of the park. And I'll show you some of that later on in the parks plan. And the last one is our Peters and Main intersection. This has been a problem for quite a while. It's got a property on the east side here that, in order to open up proper development for that property, this needs to be realigned. This is our current conceptual plan, by no means a final draft. So don't take this to heart and start publishing it in the paper or anything. But we are in process of getting right-of-way acquisition from the mill. And the idea is to realign Peters so that we can create a four-way intersection. This will be a lit intersection, not a roundabout, primarily because of the rail crossing. Still needs to be there. It's still an active rail crossing. And with this signal and realignment, which we have some money for right now through the legislature, it opens up that east side property. It also opens up, combined with the Combs Flat project, kind of this northern route. So this is an image of our transportation systems plan. You can see the dotted lines are Combs Flat coming up. Here's the existing Peters Road. Then it connects over. This is not necessarily the route. It might go down the track. It might come across. There's a lot of different routes it can take. But the idea is to get it connected over to Gardner Road. And this becomes an alternate path for the northern part of town. It also becomes a good truck route for the two mills, you know, Indura, Old Contact Mill, and what is trying to redevelop with the wood grain, so that we don't have that traffic coming down to our new 10th intersection and bogging that down, because 9th Street is currently not through yet. So this would provide that alternate access. So that's the ultimate goal there. Large projects, very expensive projects. We do have other improvements, water systems, normal paving projects that go on, but these four are probably the highest and most expensive ones that we're currently working on. So with that, we'll move on to our parks. This, like I said, is something that I think a lot of people are very interested in. It's what brings people to communities sometimes. You know, they always look for that amenities. What do we provide in the terms of recreation, and where do we provide it? Is it near to home? Is it walkable? You know, can my kid walk to school? Is there a park available for them to play in? Or do they have to play in the street? You know, we get that a lot. So I got several here. The first three are primarily city, and then the last four are actually through Parks and Rec. And so I wanted to show, for some of those who aren't aware, this is our Prineville wetland. It's a little video we put together, 2019. This is a functional water treatment or wastewater treatment facility. It's also built to be a park. Has a 5K loop around it. That's inner 3K loop. You can do races out here. Cross-country teams have done races out here. It's an incredible amenity for our public. See the trail system, paved, larger outer loop. Got restroom. It's a real testament to how you can combine uses and do something that's actually open. If you haven't gone out there, if you haven't seen it, turn on O'Neill, go down O'Neill, and there's a turn on Rimrock Loop. There's a little sign there, and this is the wetland. This is the full system. You can see the parking area there. A lot of schools use it for research projects and tours and trips. And this is the type of project that we're hoping to do with the Barnes Butte Rec area, but obviously not. It's not going to be a treatment facility, but to provide that destination for people, not just in town, but for people wanting to come over and just visit. And in this area, we have a unique opportunity with this property on the other side of the river. So Deschutes Land Trust bought that. It's the old George property, or what we call the George property, Williamson property. And what it does is it connects our frontage. And so what they want to do with this property, it's very unique in the fact that it has Mackay Creek and it has the Ocho Creek that connect into the Crooked River at the same place, really. You can actually see the old channels that used to run through here. And what they want to do is they want to restore that. The farmland was basically wasn't good. So the previous owners wanted to sell out anyway. And what Deschutes Land Trust do is they go in and they restore things for, you know, wetland function, river function, wildlife function. That's kind of their mission. And this one lends itself really well to combine with what we've done on our side and connect the two. And so we have opportunity here, and what they've designed is to connect our wetland system with their wetland system. And you can see a little bridge down here in the corner. So they've designed their plan to accommodate for a bridge crossing of the Crooked. We've accommodated on our side, just to let you know where that is. Most likely that's going to be right here. That's the idea. Then they have trail systems that work through their system. And ultimately, we'd like to have a trail connection into the city off the Matters Highway. This would provide an off-street trail that connects. Our trail system currently ends at the Presbyterian Church, Matters Highway. It'd take another 2 miles, maybe a mile and a half to get to here. We're hopeful ODOT, we can probably partner with ODOT to get that extended, but what would that do? It would create an off-street path that would connect this system and then our wetland system on the other side, where we currently, if you want to go visit the wetland, you kind of have to drive. It's not very walkable, not very bikeable. O'Neill is very narrow, so this is an opportunity, and we work with Deschutes Land Trust to provide that trail system and that crossing, and they were amenable to it. So hopefully we can get the funding and eventually make that happen and work with ODOT to get our trail system connected. That would just open this up for all types of use then. The next one's Barnes Butte Rec area. I kind of mentioned this earlier with Combs Flat. This we purchased in 2016, primarily for the water rights that our Brooks Resources owned, and protection of Barnes Butte, protection of the wetland area we have there, as well as the ability to build Combs Flat when we need it. Otherwise, we would have to wait for development to do so. This is a concept plan we put together with the council. They adopted it last year. Very conceptual, but the idea is to create primarily leave it natural and provide trail systems. Currently, it is open. Anybody can go out there. There are trails out there. There's not a whole lot of signage or anything like that. It's just kind of a very natural open recreation area. The BLM actually owns the top. So there's 160 acres up here. That's up your land management. It's public, so public to public. We just use it as if it's part of our park. Primarily, all development will occur down here in what we call the hub, what some people are calling Happy Hour Plateau on the track. And we are currently in process of developing a refined plan for this hub area with some architects and creating a visitor center, a event center, not huge, not like the fairgrounds or anything, but a place where people could have workshops or could have large venues or even do weddings, stuff like that. And then add the visitor center and even the chamber to that is the concept right now. The track, becomes a walking area, maybe do something on top on Happy Hour Plateau, maybe put in an amphitheater somewhere, maybe fill the pond and actually use it as a fishing pond. There's ideas of using it as a kind of a beach area. I mean, there's all kinds of unique ideas and concepts that we can do with this that we're trying to put into an architectural plan that we can then sell and start doing fundraising for. You can kind of see the idea of Combs Flat coming through and all the trail systems and how they connect, and then an enhanced wetland system through the area. And then this is an old slide, but We just did recently get a $200,000 grant from State Parks to do the paved loop trail, which is, if you can see, is actually in here, that black line in the concept plan. And so that is going to happen. And then we have a bridge that should be going in this month over the wetland there. Right now, there's just a little wooden bridge. This would connect Polish neighborhood with the Stone Ridge Terrace neighborhood. And the trail system would eventually enhance connection to Northridge. And once Combs Flat is done, we'll have the connection all the way down into the school and the Iron Horse, and we'll have connections over into Polish in multiple areas. And then hopefully as this whole site develops, we'll have multiple trail systems coming in. But this is kind of the first go. We also acquired some property over here from Housing Works, and that will become more of a parking lot trailhead for kind of that northern area. So this is shaping up pretty well. It's going to be a long-term plan, but we're slowly picking away at it. That's going to be kind of a main attraction. We're kind of going for that state park look, kind of that state park feeling, more of a regional thing that people will want to come to, but also make it very accessible to the community itself through those trail systems and walkable, bikeable kind of a idea. Moving on to the Parks and Rec. They have several plans. They recently just redid their master plan. So they have very detailed ideas and plans in that. If anybody's interested, you can always talk to Dwayne Gardner, or you can call myself. The Parks Master Plan is very detailed. We partnered with them and State Parks to do one unified plan. So the Parks Plan is now a unified plan between the city and the Parks and Rec districts, and actually the county. So it was a holistic plan instead of everybody doing their own thing in silos. But I wanted to point out a few of the higher level concepts that they're looking at doing. This one right here is the bike park. People are probably familiar with it if you live here. It was a park CODA helped build. Right now it's all dirt and wood. Very popular, but it's difficult to maintain. And so what they want to do is they want to come back in and they want to convert it over to more of a paved one, more of a pump track. And so you can see in this concept image, you can see the existing bike park here. And then they would develop most of it over in here into this pump track area, restrooms. We already did the parking here, 6th Street. We've piped this canal now, it's done. The rails to trails is paved and in, so this bridge connection can happen. It wouldn't be a bridge anymore, it would just be a normal path because the pipe's not there or the canal's not there. And we already resurfaced the bike basketball courts. If you haven't been down there and see those, they look awesome. So this, providing that attraction down here in the Uchco Creek Park, where it's kind of this is kind of the hub for most of the activity, and our trail systems are crossing all of it. So this is a very unique area, and we're kind of hopeful that they can actually pull this one off. It is planned. This is their plan. So when they plan on building it, I don't know. But great amenity. You've got a housing project developing right across the street. You got the skate park that was just redone. You got the pickleball courts that were just redone. They're even looking at the Creation Station, the Castle Park, seeing if they can kind of rehab that one, and then still create all these trail connections. So that's really awesome, kind of unique idea here. The next one, just kind of across the creek and down the way, the Stryker Park. This is directly behind City Hall, right next to the fire station and the new splash park. And concept here, which is really conceptual because it's drawing, but this is something that Dwayne is really pushing on. Would be more of a regional park. It's a significant build. It's kind of one of those ideas that you want to bring people into the downtown. You want to create a functioning core where you draw people in, and that helps the whole business community as well. That 4th and Main, 4th Street, that's kind of becoming our hub downtown. And this would just be another attraction that might bring other people from outside the community, but also our own community into the downtown, and not just to grab something and go, but to actually stay. Splash Park is doing that now, and that's right here in the corner. And this is designed to be kind of a reflection of the community, old and new. I don't know if you can read it or not, but like this blue, this would be actually a replica of Steen's Pillar. That's one idea they have, and they have a conceptual drawing of that. You'd have your railroad area, you have kind of a city council area, you have a log forest. The idea is to catch on all the different themes from the community history and kind of replicate that into a park that is quite significant. This is a $1 million park. So this is something I think Dwayne is actually in the Parks District is going to start fundraising for and could become a reality. This is already owned by them, but they already own the property. They just need to get the funding to construct it. The next one is a very recent purchase, the Seehale Park. It's basically a wetland. It used to be an old home and an old barn. And what I'm showing you this clip for is to kind of show the different parks along Ochoco Creek. The parks plan is essentially a plan to create a greenway throughout Ochoco Creek, and they're slowly picking away at it. So they bought Seehale area, which is what we're calling Seehale Park. They own Ward Park. You got Harwood and you got Kilowatt. We have the trail system that basically ends right there. And then it goes up and around to 9th Street. The red, they just acquired. And so this will create a nice little connection point if we can get this bridged that kind of opens up this whole area in this park system and connection. We've got homes on either side here that really have no connection to any kind of park. They're isolated. This would provide connections to both and really create a nice amenity throughout this area. And this is real conceptual. This is their kind of first blush initial type park area. So if you're selling homes in this area, this is kind of what they plan on doing in that Seehale Park area. And the Ridenhour piece, which is that red area here. So this includes both. You can see kind of a little bridge here that brings you over to Ward. So that opens up Studebaker neighborhood as well. And all these neighborhoods then have kind of a central park area that really was kind of their own. There's not a lot of people from the community that are just going to drive out there for the heck of it. It'll really be kind of theirs. Mostly left natural with trail systems, maybe some amenities. You can see a dog park concept down here. Maybe some hard type playground areas up here. Most of it's wetlands, so it's not like you're going to go in there and just bulldoze things. But this area in here is kind of high and dry. So that can really, I think that's really going to boost those neighborhoods and kind of boost the values of that area once that gets developed. And then just trails in general. So the Parks Master Plan has this map in it. And what this shows is kind of their concepts, their ideas of where trails should go or can go, or where they're hoped to go. And so all the red lines are kind of, we want connections here and we want connections there. It doesn't really say they have to be in this area, but the idea is that we want to have these connections at some point. And so as things develop, we try to look at ways to make those connections either through property dedications or easements to make these connections happen. So in the future, they can actually build these trail systems. And that's how we got a lot of the trails we have today, is just through the slow grind of development and getting those things through. What I wanted to concentrate on, we looked at the Barnes Butte area, that's this up here, and we saw the trail systems within there. But I want to show you, kind of concentrate on what's happening up on the grade and just north or west of Crestview and what we call the lower 66. So this is a snapshot of one of the trail concepts and park concepts that's in the master plan for the Parks District, and they have these for all the areas. So it's really kind of a cool thing to flip through to kind of see what's going on. Lower 66 trails exist. They go up on the grade. There's a trail system up there already on that south side of the highway. And you got the state park on the north side of the highway, but they don't connect. One of the ideas is to eventually bridge the highway down here and actually have an overpass. I think that would be really cool, also really expensive. The other concept, which are, if you go out there, there's actually a trail that goes out and leads to more trail systems north of the Facebook property and out north of the landfill. And then we have this trail connection that doesn't exist right now, but number 2, what we call the Prineville Steps. if you remember when I was talking about the ASR system, we put lines up the hill. We put sewer lines and brine lines and water lines up that hill, and there's a big scar over on the O'Neill Highway. And we tried to rehab it, but it's difficult. You know, it's really tore up. And so it's just this line. It looks like a road going up the hill. And what I thought was, instead of trying to grow something on it, let's use it. Let's step it off. Let's create some type of a step system and let people run up it, let it be a trail connection. So that's kind of a concept we have there that would allow people, I think it would be amenity, I think it'd be a fun thing for people to do. They wanted to make races out of it, wanted to challenge themselves. It's really steep. I see this in other communities where they have these kind of, Ironman runs. I think it would be a cool amenity, and that would bring people up to the state park. Eventually we can cross over here. And then eventually what we'd like to do also is flip this trail system that you see north of Facebook to the rim. These properties are slowly being acquired. And the idea would be to then have a complete rim trail along that southern rim north of the Facebook property in the landfill, as we have currently south of town along the Apple property. So that's kind of the trail system. And if you want to learn more about the other areas, Parks Master Plan is a great resource for that. I believe it's on their website. You can flip through it electronically and kind of see the areas where they plan on developing. And with that, we'll move on to kind of the building side of things. There's kind of three main projects. The old police building, which we've abandoned now, that was city, the museum expansion, and the courthouse. The police building is an old 1950s defunct structure. It's right there in the middle of town, right next to Pioneer Park. It's not being used for anything now. It needs to be torn down eventually. But what do you do with it? Okay, we could use some more parking on the county side, yes, but the idea would, I drew up a little concept. This is kind of what we've been batting around. This is by no means, we haven't even discussed this with council yet. So this is kind of an idea that's we as staff has been pitching. This is a real crude drawing, but the idea would be to keep that road one way as it is today and add kind of an angled parking all the way down, most likely add some EV stations, so electric charging stations, which we currently don't have in town, some fast chargers, not the little Type 2s, but some DC fast chargers. Then kind of create a barrier and expand Pioneer Park and create a vendor area where you could have, so when we have our picnic in the park and we have our events over there, we have, instead of having the vendors parked up in the parking lot and around the outside, kind of clustering everything, we could have an area where maybe they're food vendors, maybe they're wares vendors, whatever it might be, but power, sewer, water hookups and things right there. Put sidewalks, kind of make it a little in its core to the central to the town, creates more attractive. Another, again, trying to bring that concentration of people into town so that they don't just grab and go, they actually stay, which helps out the business community. So that's kind of the concept here. This is pie in the sky right now. There's no plans to tear the building down right now. There's no money to tear the building down right now, but that is kind of what we're thinking. We're trying to push that rumor, so maybe it happens. The next is the museum. And no, we're not going to build an old-fashioned house. This is the old Belknap house. This is right behind the museum. This is what used to be there. It's right next to, Subway would be to the left if you were looking at this. And the museum acquired that property, which currently looks like this. People around here know it as the old Hans Pharmacy. It's also the old Dairy Queen if you go way back. And the museum is to the right there. You can see the yellow caboose that we added downtown a couple of years back. What they want to do is they want to tear this down, and they have the money. It has been done. This is happening. And they want to rebuild a replica of that old home. And so this is the conceptual drawing of that. And so what they'll use it for is traveling galleries. It'll be more their place where they have things that they interchange, whereas the current museum is more stationary. Things don't move. It's always the same. This would be the area where the museum can have different exhibits and constantly rotate things through, making it more attractive for people to keep coming back again, creating that concentration of people in the downtown. Most likely 2-story, it'll have offices, it'll have traveling exhibits, it'll have a nice public area in the front, so all that asphalt will go away. These access points will go away, and we'll create a nice attractive corner than kind of that hardscape look. And most likely the roof won't look like that. It'll probably be all the way around. This is just a conceptual drawing. But I think that'll really anchor the corner on that side, create a nice atmosphere in the downtown, and a public place for people to go. It's almost like another little park. And then lastly, the courthouse. For those of you who live in Crook County, you saw this on the ballot on November 2nd. You might have saw the little quotation, "Save the courthouse," kind of like the old Back to the Future, "Save the clock tower." The courthouse is old. It was 1905, I think it was built in 1905. And it's been used as a courthouse for that long. The building department's in there, the planning department's in there, county. You got the DA, the circuit court, you got all these things packed into this building that need modern technology and security, and it's not in this building. So you see this Save the courthouse. The bond was to replace the courthouse. A lot of people were confused. We're not replacing this building. We're moving the uses to another building that we plan on building. That's what the ballot was all about, what the bond measure was about. And then we would use some of that money, or it would free up other money to actually help restore this building to be used more locally for the county court, planning commission, very minor uses, and actually restore it. It's more of a museum piece than having all these things and these uses in there that are it's not capable of serving. So they picked a site, county court. They picked a site. This is the old bowling alley. Main reason they picked it was available, but it's also a blighted piece of our community. It's been sitting there for decades, just deteriorating. And so this is going to help clean up a blighted property in our town. This is the site they chose. This is the basic overall kind of a street shot design of the new Justice Center. It's not going to be called the courthouse. It'll be called the Justice Center. Circuit Court moved near DA, Sheriff's Office, that kind of thing. And Beaver Street will be kind of converted into a parking lot, still provide access to everyone, public parking. And you can see this is going to take up the entire block. I mean, it's a big building. But I imagine everybody around it would be pretty excited to see something go in there rather than the growing weeds and an occasional truck that pulls in there and parks. And then this is what the conceptual design is for that structure. If you haven't seen it yet, this is kind of what they're planning on building. And hopefully we get there. Since the bond passed, it looks like we are going to get there. And they will go through public hearings, I'm sure, with the planning commission here at the city to get it approved. But this is what the county is looking at doing on that block. So with that, I will go to questions. It looks like we have quite a few.
Hi, yes. First of all, I just want to jump in real quick and just say thank you so much, Josh. That was awesome. So much great information in there. And we do have lots of questions already coming through and some great feedback. I do just want to address that, yes, we will have this recording available. It will take us a few days to get that up and out. So if anyone does want that, go ahead and reach out to your sales rep and we will make sure that you personally get that. Otherwise, we will have it up on our Facebook. And as far as any questions go ahead and start adding those to the chat now. I do have a few that came through prior. So if it works for you, Josh, I think we'll hit those first.
Yeah, I just have one. There's actually a Q&A folder as well from Lacey Korak. I guess I said that right. Would the museum expansion generate money? So the museum expansion, so it's a county property. It actually goes through the historical society. So they'd be Sandy, who runs the museum, would be the best person to ask on that. But I would say yes, it could. I don't know if that's their intention, but yes, I mean with the museum, I don't believe their intention. Just like the museum is open to anybody for free now, I think that's their intention, is just to have it open to anybody. but it will be a space that does provide an opportunity, especially if people just want to reserve the room for something, or maybe a traveling exhibit is they can charge the exhibit to be there, but not the people coming in. I mean, that's an opportunity, but I don't think it's their intention.
Okay, so we have
Start.
one from Gail when you were talking about the aquifer. She had asked Josh, did our tech partners up on the hill help make this all happen? Cost and build? Question mark.
Yes.
And will
so
the ASR
they,
help refill Ochoco res and
Okay.
Prineville res?
So yes, they built it. They paid for it. We didn't. It's part of development. When you develop in a city in Oregon, this is how it works. Basically, if you come in and say, I'm going to build this and I need this much water, we say, okay, our system can provide so much, but we can't provide that, so you need to build it. And so yes, they built it. It was a $18 million price tag, really, that they provided. But just like you can't build half a water tank, you don't build half a well. You know, they have to build this to provide what they need, but they also, that redundancy benefits the entire city. So and they'll continue to do that, and every development does it. It's just they're so unique that their demand is so high that it lends itself to these very large projects. So, but they do pay for it. So that shouldn't be a worry on some people's minds, that we do require them and any developer to pay for those large projects. If they didn't, you know, they still pay their system development charges as well. And so that is how normally it would work. Is you build a home, you pay your system development charges. Eventually, the city gets around to building new wells and water tanks. In this case, they needed the demand now, so they built the system now. Will the ASR help refill Ochoco Reservoir? No. So the Ochoco Reservoir is an irrigation reservoir. The two systems are not the same. ASR pulls from the groundwater. Ochoco Reservoir is completely separate. That water really isn't. If we didn't have the ASR, if the data centers weren't pulling water, if we weren't pulling water as a city, that reservoir still would have been dry this year. They don't connect in the same way. And the ASR system is actually pulling over by the Crooked River, so that comes out of Bowman. We have reserve capacity in Bowman as a city, and how it's a whole water right issue. It's really difficult to understand, but what basically we do is we have a right to use water out of Bowman, but we don't actually use it. So we pull water out of the ground and in essence release some water out of Bowman. It goes into the river. Technically, irrigators use it. It's kind of a mixed resource at that point. But what we're seeing in our wells and our groundwater, that groundwater recharges. It's not dropping. It doesn't drop and stay down. It always comes back and recharges. So in essence, the systems are mixed, but they're not related in the same aspect. Like when we're having irrigation problems and we're having the drop in the reservoirs, the ASR, any of our wells in the city are not affecting that. It's a delayed response. And so primarily the ASR system is working in the wintertime when they're filling the reservoirs anyway. That's when we're pumping that hard and injecting up on the hill. And so we weren't even using that in the summertime. So I hope that answered it. If you have any real deep questions, we can certainly get into kind of ins and outs of how that works.
Great, thank you. We did have another one. It says, Josh, how many street accesses will be connecting to that Peters Road, Combs Flat Road connection?
So right now, 2. So we have those streets that are right up to now. There's a plan to have Hudspeth. So it was always the plan to have Hudspeth Road would connect through, because we need to connect over to the other side. And then I believe the plan would be to bring Rimfire from the Polish neighborhood over. And then that would be the intersection that connects with the entrance to the Barnesby Rec area as well. And those are the only 2 on that new section that will really connect at this time. We don't, the idea is not to have a bunch of intersections in there. It's the idea is to move people through and have it's a major collector street.
Great, thank you. Okay, next one. Regarding piping the OID canal, Where are the tree huggers, spotted owl, and frog lovers? Has anyone given any thought to the fact that when you pipe the canal, you've just annihilated many ecosystems, waterfowl, water snakes, muskrats, so forth. They all look to the canal for a water source. I walk along the canal near my home, and once it's piped, what a boring world.
Yeah, this is a comment we get a lot, piping canals. In this scenario, so OID has a project that they need to supply water to the Mackay district. So it's actually, the whole idea of this piping project is to get volume. We have to pump the water, so we can't run it through a canal because we need the pressure. And the idea is to get it up, and it actually goes up into the Mackay area where they're pulling out their wells to provide more water in Mackay Creek. And then this will supply them with their irrigation water. So yeah, we're taking the water out of the canal here, but we're actually putting it up in Mackay Creek, technically over there, to provide more water for wildlife. But in this area, we actually also have the huge wetland system down there, the Hudspeth Drain. We also have the reservoir. Hudspeth Lake is not going away. We will also try to activate, the plan would be to activate the old canal on the east side that used to feed the reservoir, the pond, and then to fill that pond. So it's not like there aren't other water sources available. It's just that this project lends itself to the need to pipe that. But the irrigation resource is still there. So there's some plans with this architectural drawing we're going through with the Barnes Butte Rec area. We'd like, the wetland will remain. Hudspeth Reservoir is still there. And what we'd like to do is pipe water up, fill up that pond, and then that pond will need an overflow. So we'll probably create another channel, kind of a backwater channel, that'll create another nicety amenity that brings it back down to the wetland. So we're losing one, we're gaining another. It is what it is. But we do get those comments a lot. Anytime you pipe a canal, people got used to it's hard.
Sure.
But it's going to happen. It's happening next year, and it's going to be there.
So I do just want to add real quick, I know that we're getting close to our time. If anybody does need to go, that is totally fine. You will get your CE credit. That does take us a couple days to process. We are going to continue answering some questions here. If you don't feel like your question did get fully answered, or if you would like more information from Josh, his email is public information. And Josh, perhaps we can add that to the chat now, and whoever would like can reach out to him personally as well. But we'll continue to answer some of these questions. I just want to make sure you all know that you will get your credit within a few days, and you're welcome to stay on with us for as long as you can.
Yeah, I just added my email.
Thank you.
So the next question I saw here was about, I thought the plan was to provide water from the data centers using wastewater. Yes, so this is still a reality, can happen. The reason it didn't happen last time, there was a plan to do this. The problem with it is when you use our wastewater to the data centers, it's an expensive thing to do, to polish that water and pump it up the hill. And that system only serves them. So our thought at the time was, why build a system that only serves them? And if they stopped using it, we still have to build a redundant system, right? Because if they stopped using ours, there was a problem with that wastewater usage. You still have to have the water to supply that if it fails. And we just built the $20 million system that doesn't serve anybody else. So that's why the ASR system came before. That kind of provides that redundancy. Now they're coming back more recently and they're talking about this. Hey, what about, and this is mostly on the Apple side, they're asking, hey, let's go back and let's look at this as another resource, as another redundant resource for that water usage. So no, we didn't do it at this point, but it is still on the horizon, and it may actually be a reality at some point to offset some of those usage and to offset their wastewater too, because they do have a lot of blowdown. That water has to come back. It's concentrated, but we can polish it and pump it right back up to them. Great. We just didn't want to do something that then didn't produce something for the whole community, and that's why we went first. Oh, went back to the top. Okay.
So it looks like we have one that says, we live by the Presbyterian
Yep.
Church across the Crooked River. Would we eventually be able to walk to wetlands once the trail is complete?
That is the goal. The goal is to have that path extended out to and through the DLT property and into the wetland system, into our city wetland and back. That's the ultimate goal. That's in the Parks Master Plan. It's in the city's plans for that. It's in the DLT plans. It's just getting the funding to actually build the bridge and the trail. We'll have the trails on site, but getting that bridge connection and that ODOT trail out there are the two key money points that we'll have to work on.
So it looks like we've got a lot of thank yous left in the chat, but we do have a couple in the Q&A chat. We have, why don't you just use the courthouse as a museum instead of building the other one? You could build something else for the museum lot. Also, does Prineville have a city architect?
Well,
That is in the question and answer box.
oh, okay, that's why I can't see it.
Yeah.
Use the courthouse and museum. So it's on the county side, so the county makes all the decisions on this stuff, but I've been in their meetings before. So the idea is to turn the courthouse kind of into a museum. It'll still be a functioning courthouse for the county court, planning commissions, for county business. The idea of building the Justice Center is to actually move all those state operating things out. So that right now circuit court is operating in the courthouse. The DA is in the courthouse. We pulled the sheriff out of where they are and put them out from the jail and put them in this Justice Center. It's not, and I think I'm misreading your question. So you're saying instead of building the expansion of the museum, can we make that the courthouse and then do something else? I see what you're saying. They're two different things. So the county has the courthouse, they own it. The museum is actually run by the Historical Society, completely different. And they have their own mission. They really don't intersect. And the county still has the need to use the courthouse, the existing courthouse, for those functions. So it's not like it would lend itself well for a museum to operate like that. The idea would be to have people allowed to tour the courthouse and things, but the museum and the Historical Society kind of have a different mission. And that's where the Justice Center comes in, so we can free up the courthouse for other uses. Then the next one is a conceptual plan for the Justice Building the only one that is being considered? Is it possible more like Bowman Museum, the Haynes Building, or vintage look? That would be a good question for the county. This was something that they went out to an architectural design to get something that they could show people as a possibility. Right now, that's the only design I've ever seen. We don't really have the stone to build it like the other courthouse. So it's not like it's going to be that. We could do it out of brick. You could do things like that. But that would be more for the county court. Brian Barney, I think, is kind of leading the charge on that one. You could ask them what designs they've considered. But they're going through kind of an architectural design themselves. I've seen various versions of the one you saw there. Some had balconies, some had some different architectural features, but it was always that look. So that's really on the county for them, whatever they're proposing. The city doesn't have anything to do with what the county wants to build in that sense. And
looks like that's it for our questions. Perfect timing.
I think
right
so.
on the dot. Well, Josh, thank you so much. That was wonderful. So much great information there. And I'm sure there's just even more to come. So we really appreciate your time and
Sure.
for answering those questions, sharing your email. We really look forward to hopefully working with you again in the future. If any of you again need or want this recording or have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your local sales rep, or as Josh said, you can reach out to him anytime for any questions. So thank you again.
Yes, no problem. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.